theories up in my head, conspiracy theories and everything else, but it just seemed a little convenient that there was no water, and and that the wind conditions were right, and that there are people ready and willing and able to start fires. And are they commissioned to do so, or are they just acting on their own volition? I don't know. But they seem pretty well equipped, some of these people that they're catching.
A lot of questions. A lot of questions, Mel. Mel, a message tonight.
Yeah, I'll sift through the remains of my place and see if I can find any clues for you.
I've been trying to get Gavin Newsom to allow water to come. You'd have tremendous water up there. They send it out to the Pacific because they're trying to protect a tiny little fish.
People are literally fleeing. People have lost their lives. Kids lost their schools. Families completely torn asunder. Churches burned down. This guy wanted to politicize it. I have a lot of thoughts, and I know what I want to say.
Gibson has just unleashed another brutal shot at Gavin Newsom in their ongoing feud, and it's as savage as it is hilarious. The two have been locked in a public war of words since last year's devastating California wildfires, and there's no end in sight. After losing his Pacific Palisades home to the flames, Gibson is now calling on Californians to oust Newsom and elect a governor who can actually lead. His latest takedown has sparked some of the most unhinged reactions we've seen from Newsom yet. And yes, I've got all the clips. So go ahead, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's dive in.
Any message from you to Governor Newsom or Karen Bass tonight?
Spend less on hair gel.
Sharp and savage California's governor seems more devoted to his hair gel than the people he's meant to lead. And that has Mel Gibson fuming, while Newsom preens for the cameras. His state is drowning in chaos. Soaring taxes, crushing red tape, ice riots, rampant homelessness, filthy streets, and constant unrest. But does he care? Not likely. He's too busy admiring his reflection.
Gavin Newsom is now calling his city's homeless encampments unacceptable, which is odd since he's the guy who made them acceptable, turning sidewalks into red carpet events for drug addicts, thieves, and unemployed CNN.
Gibson and Greg Gutfeld didn't pull any punches, they slammed Gavin Newsom for pushing woke policies that have wrecked California. Newsom didn't just allow homelessness, he fueled it. Instead of clearing encampments or offering real rehab solutions, he doubled down, erecting tents right where the crisis was growing. The result, total collapse. Major cities have turned into open-air encampments, strewn with needles, trash, and human waste. Once beautiful streets now look like third-world slums, all under Newsom's watch. Even Trump took aim at him just weeks ago, calling out his failed leadership.
Trying to get Gavin Newsom to allow water to come. You'd have tremendous water up there. They send it out to the Pacific because they're trying to protect a tiny little fish.
People are literally fleeing. People have lost their lives. Kids lost their schools. Families completely torn asunder. Churches burned down. This guy wanted to politicize it. I have a lot of thoughts, and I know what I want to say. I won't.
How is what President Trump said even considered political? It wasn't partisan spin, it was a cold, hard fact. Gavin Newsom did authorize the destruction of a dam that could have helped contain or even prevent the devastating Palisades fire. And for what? To protect one endangered fish and appease a handful of local indigenous groups. That's not leadership. It's negligence disguised as environmentalism. That dam could have provided critical water for firefighters, potentially saving homes, wildlife, and lives. But Newsom chose optics over action, virtue signals over safety. And now, Californians are left to suffer the consequences.
Horrible theories up in my head, conspiracy theories and everything else, but it just seemed a little convenient that there was no water, and and that the wind conditions were right, and that there are people ready and willing and able to start fires. And are they commissioned to do so, or are they just acting on their own volition? I don't know. But they seem pretty well equipped, some of these people that they're catching.
A lot of questions. A lot of questions, Mel. Mel, a message tonight.
Yeah, I'll sift through the remains of my place and see if I can find any clues for.
And here's where it all comes to a head. Investigators now believe some of the Pacific Palisades fires were likely sparked by local teens or possibly transient campers. But what really raised red flags was what police found during the arrests: fire accelerants, protective gear, and crude ignition devices. Not exactly what you'd expect from careless kids or random vagrants. The setup felt deliberate, almost professional, as if someone had been incentivized or even contracted to light those fires. That's when Mel Gibson's alarm bells went off. He's not giving Newsom the benefit of the doubt, not for a second. With Newsom's track record, Gibson sees a pattern. Political theater dressed as crisis, every disaster, a tool for pushing policy, grabbing power, and chasing federal funds.
Welcome to a new segment called Gavin's Hands. He keeps his hands in motion and his hair full of lotion. True, Gavin's views may be idiotic, but his hands moves, well, they're hypnotic. California Governor Newsom's new podcast is out. It's available wherever fine hair care products are.
The saddest part of this entire saga, Gavin Newsom is launching a podcast. He claims it's a platform for meaningful conversations with people he disagrees with and allegedly admires. But let's be real, this is nothing more than a slick vanity project. It's a calculated move to test the waters, boost his image, and prep for a possible presidential run. Political theater, wrapped in a faux intellectual package. The guest list will be handpicked, the questions soft, the narrative tightly controlled. This isn't about dialogue, it's about ambition. Newsom doesn't want conversation. He wants a
Wonders why Dems lost.
We lost the popular vote and we lost the electoral vote. We got crushed. And we need to be humble about that, and we need to have some grace, and we need to understand why. Was it because of the incumbency penalty? Was it because of inflation? Was it because of interest rates? Was it because of immigration? Was it because we were too, quote unquote,
Kennedy, I think the answer is yes. Was
it because of Israel? Yes. Interest rates? Yes.
Yet another epic meltdown from Gavin Newsom over the 2024 election, and it speaks volumes. No one in the Democratic camp seriously thought Trump would make a comeback. For years, they painted him as the ultimate villain, convinced his political career was dead. But while they mocked and dismissed him, Trump was quietly his message, re-energizing his base, and seizing on every failure of the Biden administration. Democrats, meanwhile, wasted time on name-calling and media theatrics instead of real solutions. Then came the shock at the ballot box. News outburst isn't just frustration, it's panic. The narrative they spent years controlling has collapsed, and Trump's return has thrown their entire playbook into chaos.
Issues of audits. I mean, I was commenting when I was with President Trump. We talked about the high-speed rail, and there was some discussion before the public presentation on high-speed rail last week around audits. I think we've been audited 100 times there. Happy to see another audit. At a certain point, you have audit fatigue. I think at the end of the day, people want outcomes and they want results for their money spent. Audits for audit's sake service no one, just services headlines. What people want is problems solved, and they want to see it. They want to believe it. They don't want to hear it, and they don't want to hear excuses. And
this was the moment President Trump stepped in to audit California's high-speed rail project, a move that was long overdue. For years, this so-called transformational project has burned through hundreds of millions in taxpayer dollars, with little more to show than scattered tracks and endless delays. Timelines shift, costs skyrocket, and no one's held accountable. Gavin Newsom quickly fired back, claiming it's already been audited 100 times. But audits by Democrats are just political theater, always the same script. No wrongdoing, nothing to see. Trump's audit, though, that hit differently. It sent shockwaves through Newsom's camp. He knew this wouldn't be a friendly review. And that's when the panic set in, because a real audit could finally expose the incompetence, mismanagement, and possible corruption hiding inside California's most bloated infrastructure.
In 2019, I think Newsom said, I'm going to take care of the forests and maintain the forests and do all that kind of stuff. He didn't do anything.
Didn't do anything. And then on top of that, they cut the water off.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's all funny. And then I think all our tax dollars probably went for Gavin's hair gel. I don't know, but it's like, it's sad. It's like the place is just on fire.
Well, the whole state is just so poorly managed.
A former California resident didn't hold back in calling out Gavin Newsom's leadership. Once a beacon of promise, innovation, and opportunity, California has, in Rogan's words, become unlivable. He pointed to crushing living costs, relentless overregulation, and a toxic cancel culture as driving forces behind his decision to leave. Rogan, who once proudly called Los Angeles home, now uses his platform to spotlight just how far the state has fallen. It wasn't just about taxes. He left because the culture turned oppressive, creativity stifled, and basic freedoms threatened. For Rogan, it was more than a move. It was a rejection of the political and cultural decay Newsom either ignores or encourages. And Rogan isn't alone. Thousands are voting with their
Karen Bass have already proven their incompetence and poor leadership during the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, as we experience rampant lawlessness and civil unrest, it's never been more clear they're unable to respond effectively and responsibly during calamity. Whether it's sheer incompetence or outright malevolence, the reality is stark. California's in a state of turmoil, and I ask my fellow Angelenos, why are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass still in office?
Gavin Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass need to be shown the door. It's clear they have nothing of real value to offer Californians. Under their watch, the state has plunged into a crisis of homelessness, crime, inflation, and runaway bureaucracy. Once thriving cities are now plagued by tent-lined sidewalks, rising violence, unaffordable housing, and an exodus of working families and small businesses. Their so-called progressive policies have made headlines but failed the everyday people who live here. Mel Gibson, a longtime resident, has had enough, and he's not alone. A growing wave of frustrated Californians is demanding accountability and calling for Newsom's ouster. They see through the political posturing and empty promises. Californians aren't just tired, they're angry. And that anger is sparking a movement for real leadership, not media-trained figureheads. It's time for change.
I understand you offered Gavin Newsom help in handling his unrest. I understand that didn't go over too well.
Yeah, they accused us of trying to, quote, escalate. But I can tell you what escalates the situation is being a sanctuary state. What escalates the situation is tolerating the looting and the rioting and the burning of these vehicles and attacks on law enforcement. And we do it just the opposite in Florida. When the 2020 riots were happening in Minneapolis, California, all these other places, we didn't let that happen in Florida. But we also recognize, like, this is what the left does. So we did landmark anti-rioting legislation.
Now this is how you run a state, folks. Governor Ron DeSantis laid out a clear, no-nonsense blueprint for leadership one Gavin Newsom could learn from, if not outright adopt. DeSantis passed tough anti-riot laws,